This is how Terraria can help you better understand the fourth dimension. Terraria is often compared as 2D Minecraft by oblivious, short-sighted, intellectually incurious beings who haven't even tried the game past the starting point. And you know what? I'm tired of it. Mainly because I used to be one of those people, but at least I tried. And I liked it and realized it's far different from Minecraft. So today, as a fuck you to those people who will keep judging and don't even want to give it a try, I'm not gonna explain to you why you should or how Terraria isn't really 2D Minecraft and is even ridiculous for comparing the two. Let me explain to you what the fuck is the fourth dimension and how it all connects to Terraria. First, let me explain to you what the fourth dimension is, starting with 0. Yes, 0 dimensions exist, where it's only a point, a single fixed point. Going one dimension higher, we have one dimension, which can easily be explained by using an axis X, where it can only go from left to right. Going one higher, two-dimensional is when it can go not only in the X-axis, left to right, but also in the Y-axis, which is up to down. So, in one dimension where your location can be determined by only one number, in the second dimension, your location can be determined by two numbers, which we call coordinates, X and Y. And in the third dimension, which where and what we are, it would be determined by three coordinates, X which is left to right, Y which is up to down, and Z which is forward to backward. But in the fourth dimension, there should also be another way of determining the location or a direction, something we call W. But we don't know where it is or what it is or how it even works. There's also another way of explaining the fourth dimension without using coordinates, but perspectives. Let's say this wall. A two-dimensional being can't walk through this wall because he only sees what's in front of him and on top or bottom of him. But a third-dimensional being like us can see that there's a way for him to go through this wall. He just needs to step aside and walk forward. But what about us? A third-dimensional being like us faced with a wall we can see through or walk through. For us, there's no way of going through this wall, but to a fourth-dimensional being, there is. We just can't see or access it like they do. Now, we don't really know what the fourth dimension truly is despite all our efforts, but there are cases where most people think that time is the fourth dimension, which is wrong. But also right? The thing is, time isn't really the fourth spatial dimension. It is often explained that having access to four dimensions, which in this case, time, can make you see the past, present, and future all at the same time, which is a popular interpretation on how it could work, where you can access each in between with little to no worry, just like taking a step aside for us in 3D. In physics, events are often described as X, Y, Z, and T. Time, which is called the four-dimensional space-time. But in our case, we're talking about the spatial dimension, which is more on geometry rather than physics, which is X, Y, Z, and W. But how would we know what it would look like if we saw a higher dimension? Before we understand how fourth dimension would look to us, let's first understand how third dimension would look like in a second dimension. Let's say we take a 2D character and put it in a 3D space. How would he perceive it? Well, luckily for us, someone already made something for this situation. Let me introduce you to 4D Miner, a game simulating what could look or feel like playing 4D, which is rendered in 3D, shown on a 2D screen. A 2D being operating in a 3D space will not make him automatically also see and move through 3D space. They will still be limited by their 2D plane of view, and to move the other direction in the third dimension, they have to almost rotate their world view, which also changes their perspective. But how about for us? What if we were the one that was put in a fourth dimensional space as three-dimensional creatures? Well, it could possibly look like this. If we place a block in our perceived 3D space and then rotate like a 2D character rotating on a 3D plane, the block would have disappeared, but in reality, it's just in the fourth dimension. Now, we're not entirely sure if it were to happen in real life, it would look something like this or might even feel like this. But even if we don't know what experiencing the fourth dimension would actually be like, we can still visualize how a 4D object might appear to us. An example would be the Tesseract, a four-dimensional cube meant to visualize how a 4D thing would look to us. The problem is that this thing we are seeing is not really a 4D thing, but a representation of it in 3D, which is then rendered in a 2D screen. How does it work? No fucking clue. I've watched this video multiple times and still didn't understand shit. But how it works isn't the point. I just wanted to show you this because A, it looks cool, B, it's a representation of a topic we're discussing. My actual point here is that if let's say a 4D object decided to show itself to us, we can only see 3 out of 4 of its dimensions, the X, Y, and Z. 4D Miner even tackled this topic. The Hyper Spider, a 4-dimensional being that operates in the 4D space, actually has 32 legs and almost the same size as us. But we can never see its full form because it has 4-dimensional parts we can't perceive. Like how if we show ourselves to a 2D creature, it will only show 2 out of 3 of our dimensions, X and Y. For example, let's say we pass a 3D sphere through a 2D world. For a 2D being, it would look like this. A point, then a small circle, a larger circle, the largest circle, back to that larger circle, then to the small circle, then to a point, then nothing. But have you ever wondered why we can project higher dimensions into our perspective, yet still never really understand them while we can effortlessly look at a 2D image and see it as 3D? I don't know how, but I can tell you why. Our brains are so used to seeing 3D things that we automatically construct almost everything we see into 3-dimensional things despite it being in a different dimension. For example, this cube I'm drawing is called a Necker cube. At first glance, it's a simple drawing of cube, but if you actually look into it, it's just two-dimensional squares connected from corner to corner. But our brain interprets it as something with depth. Same with multiple optical illusions like the Penrose triangle, a 2D drawing of a triangle that looks connected in the 3rd dimension but could not really physically exist in the 3rd dimension. Let's go back to Terraria because we're far drifting away from our original topic. Let's take a look at Devourer of Gods, for example, a 2D creature moving like a 3D creature in a 2D space. What do I mean moving like a 3D creature? You see how it overlaps itself? For us looking through the 2D screen, it looks like part of the worm passes over or under another, almost as if it's lifting itself into a 3rd dimension to go through itself, which a 2D creature could not normally do, but for the 2D characters, it just looks like it passes through itself. But what would Terraria look like if it was 4D? The answer? I have no idea. Every 4D visuals I showed are just mathematical projections on how 4D is represented in lower dimensions, but not an actual how it would really look. So a factually correct 4D Terraria or just 4D in general isn't really possible to create. But who cares? It's not even the point of this video anyways. Nobody wishes Terraria should be in a higher dimension or just 3D because it's perfect in its own plane. Even if the closest we have to 3D Terraria is modded Minecraft, you don't see anyone picking it over Terraria itself because it just doesn't feel the same. No, I'm not talking about not having the same bosses or same equipment or weapons. We can literally just do that in modded Minecraft. I'm talking about the feel of the game itself. Terraria as a 2D works because it's simple. All you have to do is dodge. Not dodge like at this attack, dodge towards the XYZ axis, but a dodge of just move out of the way. It's simple yet it's so great. The 2D part of the game isn't a hindrance on how great the game could be, but an integral part of the game itself. You don't play it and feel like it's missing another dimension. You play it feeling like how a game should be really played, by making sure your pixels don't collide with the other pixels. And that's why Terraria is the greatest game of all time. What's this video about again?